Hello friends, welcome to my channel. So in today's session, we'll discuss about advanced BDD Cucumber interview questions. So let's get started. So as you know, Cucumber is a tool that supports BDD level of automation, behavior-driven development. So it's a tool that supports BDD and which is very much useful for understanding because business analyst or non-technical person can also understand this framework very well. So it's gaining very much popularity in today's market, and we'll go through some of the basic questions, basic interview questions. So first question is how to pass data from feature file to step definitions. So answer will be like using parameters in step definitions that matches placeholders in the Gherkin steps. So for example, we can use user logs in the username, like whenever you are creating a feature file. So as you know, like Gherkin is a syntax that supports Cucumber, and we normally use Gherkin to create feature files in the given when then format, and we can basically use tags um, in the feature file. Let's say if you are passing username passwords, you can use tags like in the brackets user and password, and we can use something called a scenario outline with examples tables where we can basically use to parameterize the scenarios. We can also use data tables, okay, like in the form of tabular data or doc string. These are the way we can basically pass data in the feature file, okay, and that mm, that will go to the step definition, and depending on the type of data and test scenario, it will gets automated. Okay, so basic summary, like we can pass the structured data in the form of table, or we can pass in terms of doc strings. Also, we can pass through inline parameters like simple values in steps or scenario outline. Okay, for data driven tests, data table also you can use in terms of structured data test, structured or table data or doc strings. Okay, multi-line JSON, or if you want to pass any JSON in the feature file, you can use doc strings. Okay. Now, next question will be how to use data table in Cucumber. So in Cucumber Java, we can use data table to pass the structured data like a table from a feature file to the step definition. Cucumber normally provides powerful ways to convert these tables into Java objects or collections. So first way will be we can use like basic data table, and in the feature file that will be converted as list to list, and in second way will be data table as list of maps. So if you want to pass like key value pairs, you can use maps, let's say column headers for example, and you can also use map table to custom Java Pojo classes. So if you have a, let's say if you have a user class, you can directly convert rows into objects. So you basically create a Pojo class where you can create variables, let's say user ID, user names, roll number, or employee name, and you can basically convert them into an objects, and you can pass in the feature file. You can also use something called a single column list, and so in to summarize, we can use simple list, table as a list, table with as a headers or map, and table with a Pojo, table to Pojo, basically. So this is the way we can basically use data table Cucumber. Okay, we can use methods like list string or list map, as list or as maps. These are the methods we can use basically pass the data into the step file. Next question will be how to write reusable methods in step definitions. So in Cucumber Java, you can basically write reusable methods in your step definition classes or utility classes. Okay, to avoid code duplication and improved maintainability. Now there are different ways to reusable methods in Cucumber Java. So first will be like you can define private or protected methods in step definitions. Okay, so you can basically break common logic into private methods within your step definitions. and you can move common logic into a utility helper class. So you can extract common methods. Normally we write common methods in the base class, which can be used by several other classes. So you can do the same thing. Write the common methods to a utility class and then reuse across multiple step definition classes. That will be the good approach. We can also use step logic to another step definition. So for example, you can call one step definition method from another, but this is something not recommended. So, but it's just a option. So you can basically integrate or insert or inject a step into another step definition file. And you can use dependency injections for shared helpers. For example, if you're using Cucumber with, let's say, Pico container, you can share helpers via constructor injections. That is also possible. So, so best practices will be like we can use private methods, okay, and we can use utility or helper classes, and we can use dependency injections like Pico. So these are the way we can write reusable methods in step definitions. Okay. How do you manage global state across steps? So in Cucumber Java, managing global steps across steps is often necessary when we need to share data between different step definitions in the same scenario or even across multiple scenarios. So best practices will be using a POJO or context classes. So you can create a custom POJO class to hold the shared variables. And next will be you can inject it via constructor using Pico container. Okay, so Cucumber basically automatically injects shared dependencies across between step definition file if we use a constructor injection. Okay, next is using Cucumber's scenario context or scenarios. Okay, so if you want to attach simple key value data or log scenario info, then we can use scenario context or scenario. Okay, we can also do like dependency injection frameworks. Like Pico container is very much part of default presence in Cucumber Java. We can also use Spring. Cucumber Spring integration is also possible. Okay, these frameworks basically allow you to define beans or components and share them across steps and hooks. Okay, so in summary, it will be like we can use context classes like as per scenario or POJO classes. We can use static variables which can be shared or managed globally across the steps, and we can use dependency injections via Spring or any of the other supported um, framework. Okay, so let's move to the next questions. How do you call APIs in Cucumber step definitions? So in Cucumber Java, you can tell like APIs directly from, you can call APIs directly from your step definition using libraries like REST Assured, which is very common or most famous REST Assured REST API. We can also use HTTP client, or we can use another type of any other type of API clients like retrofit is there. Okay, so first we have to basically add dependencies in Maven. So you need to basically use io.cucumber dependency and from the Maven central. Okay, and we have to use and Jackson data bind. So this is very much needed to parse the JSON, and we have to use feature file where you can basically write the given when then format, and then we have to use step definition. We have to write the step definition, and so in common best practice will be like reuse common headers or body or any helper methods, and then you can also use something like reuse response between the steps like store in content or instance variable. Okay, so you can also create POJO classes to store response from any other steps. Okay, and and you can use like dependency injection to basically inject the steps which are common. using constructor injections, as I mentioned earlier, using Pico container. Next question will be, how do you validate UI elements in Cucumber with Selenium? So to validate the UI elements using Cucumber with Selenium in Java, you can write test steps like feature files using Gherkin syntax and implement step definition using Selenium WebDriver APIs. So first will be like your UI validation with Cucumber plus Selenium. So feature file you have to create, and then step definition file you have to create. And so common UI assertion that you can use will be like element is visible. And so you can mention something like element is displayed. That's a method. Element is enabled. You can mention enabled element don't is enabled. If you want to verify any text which is existing, then you can mention element dot get text equals to, let's say, the text value. And if you want to verify any value which exists, so you can mention element dot get attribute. In the bracket you can put the value. Then if element is selected or checked, you can mention element is selected. Element exists, you can mention like driver dot find element by is empty, is the way you can verify. So best practices will be use like page object model, so which improved code reusability and reusability of the code. So you use clear locators, for example, ID, name, these are very much unique locators you can use. So this will help to avoid brittle with XPath, which are very much dynamic. And you can use like explicit WebDriver wait. So it basically handles dynamic loading. And also you can use something like you can store driver in base class or test context. So it is useful. It will be useful to share context across the steps. You can use tear down after scenario, so it will prevent memory leaks with driver.quit. So driver.quit will basically the step where your browser will be closed once your execution is completed in the tear down step. Okay, so you can also use assertions. Let's say assert equals, you can use that. You can also use hooks using add before and add after for setup and tear down. So these are some of the steps to validate elements in Cucumber with Selenium. Next, how do you handle exceptions or failures in Cucumbers? So handling exceptions or failures in Cucumber step is crucial to make the test robust, clear, and maintainable. So normally you can do it. You can make sure that your exceptions will fail the step. This is the default behavior basically. So exceptions like no such element exception, assertion error is thrown inside the step method. Okay, so the step will be failed. And you can skip the rest of the scenario depending on the configurations, and you can log the exception in the report. Okay, that's one way you can handle. Next is you can use assertions to fail the steps. For example, use assertion like libraries like JUnit, TestNG, assert J to explicitly fail the steps. Okay, next will be you can use like catch exceptions. So using try catchy block, okay, you can to handle gracefully the exception. Okay, and once the exception comes, you can basically take the screenshots of that failed screen. Okay, using hooks to capture failure globally. So you can use Cucumber after at the rate after hooks to execute logic and only if the scenario is failed. And you can write custom exceptions. So you can create your own exceptions. Okay, these are called custom exceptions to clarify failure reasons. So you can do that. So and also you can write logging failures. For example, you can add logs inside catch blocks or hooks to help debugging. So in a nutshell, like you can use assertions, you can catch or throw the exceptions, you can use hooks, and you can write a custom exception. This is the way you can basically handle exceptions in Cucumber. Next is how to implement hooks to execute code before and after scenarios. So as I mentioned, in Gogoma Java, you implement hooks to run the code before and after the scenarios using the before and after annotations from the io.gogoma.java.package, Java package. So first will be you have to create a hooks class. So um, it will have add before and add after annotations. You can execute the hooks like the add before method will run before each scenario, add after method will run after each scenario, and you can use scenario object. You can That's one of the way. Okay, so next is multiple hooks and ordering. So you can define multiple hooks and control the execution order. Then you can also run hooks before and after each step also. And in summary, like you can run the hooks before and after scenario level. Okay, before and after each scenario and after each scenario. You can also run hooks after each step level. So before and after each step level, both ways you can run the hooks. Next question is, how do you handle configurations or environment specific data? So in Cucumber with Java, handling configurations or environment specific data like base URLs, credentials, timeouts is essential for creating maintainability and flexibility test of the test suites that can run in different environments. For example, QA, UAT, or prod. So you can create configure.properties file where you can put all the base URLs, username, passwords, timeouts. Okay. You can also create a configurator that will basically read the config.properties file and it will load the properties file. Okay. You can create a file input stream object and you can basically load the config.properties file. You can read the data from the properties file, and you can use environmental variables or JVM parameters to basically pass environment info into CI/CD or command line. You can do that, and so you can also like use JSON or YAML config files. Okay, you can use Jackson or YAML to pass the file, or you can create Pojo to map the data. Okay, and you can use dependency injections for config sharing. So if you are using Pico containers, you can load config once in the constructor and inject it into a step definition. And you can use like profiles in test runner. So different runners into different environments. You can use like you can use in the test runner class. You can create like profiles like feature file. You can give glue, you can give tags, you can give plugins, and you can give dry run. This is the way you can basically use profiles in test runner. So in a nutshell, config.properties, you can simply put key value pairs. JSON or YAML file, you can put your properties, complex or nested config details. Environmental variables, you can pass through CI/CD pipeline. So you can go to your system environmental variables and you can pass the environmental variables directly into the code, or into the Jenkins, you can directly create environmental variables and you can pass them those configurations. And so these are the way you can basically handle configurations. Next is how you integrate Cucumber with test runner like JUnit and TestNG. So integration of Cucumber with test runner like JUnit or TestNG allows basically user to execute goals in BDD scenarios from feature file as part of Java test suite. So first is recommendation is we use Cucumber with JUnit 5. It is the latest version. So you have to basically give io.cucumber versions in the pom.file, pom.xml file, and then you can also use or.junit.platform. That dependency is actually for JUnit 5. And then you can also configure a test runner with to run in JUnit 5. Okay. Next is if you have legacy projects, you can also run using JUnit 4. Okay, for JUnit 4, it will be like io.cucumber, little bit lower version you can use in the Maven from the Maven dependencies. 6.9.0 can be the one which will be running in JUnit 4. Anything above 7 for Cucumber -JUnit will be JUnit 5. And Cucumber with TestNG, you can also use, it is less recommended, so you can use Cucumber with TestNG, hyphen Cucumber hyphen TestNG, you can use that dependency in the Maven. So you can use TestNG runner also, it will run. So recommended is JUnit 5. That's for the latest version, you can run your code. So best practices will be, you can basically place feature files under features folder, step definition files under step definition folder. You can use add suit or add run with cucumber.class for JUnit 4, or if you want to use add suit, it will be JUnit 5. You can use add cucumber options to define glue tags plugins. Okay. You can use Maven Surfer plugin for CI/CD integration to run the Cucumber tests. So these are some of the very advanced level Cucumber questions. So it will be useful for you people to prepare for the interviews. So I hope you like it, friends. Thank you very much once again.